At this time, we're moving over to Mr. Lon Jordan.
Thank you, Brennan Hollis. During this part of the show, I would like to share with you some of my feelings about family, as well as some of the experiences that I've had that helped me to learn what a successful family is. One of the lessons that I learned about family is this: with family comes suffering sometimes. There are two types of suffering that I would like to talk about. The first type is due to dysfunction. When I was 4.5 years old, my father left my mother and I, and as the years went by, my father stopped spending time with me, and our relationship began to dissipate. And it was during that time that I got very frustrated and angry and bitter and hated him. And basically all these feelings and emotions became my best friend. And it was also there during that time that I actually spent a lot of time trying to prove to other people that I was better than them and do whatever that I could to prove to people that I can be more proficient in any area that they thought that they were good at. And all this happened because there was a deep-rooted insecurity that happened because I had no father in my life and no direction and guidance to help me get to where I need to be. And so I had to learn to grow through the suffering it took for me to become a man of God that I was called to be. I had to learn to go through the suffering it took for me to learn how to forgive my father. And all these different types of experiences created a deep amount of pain in my life. Maybe you might not have experienced that same type of pain. Maybe you've experienced being raped or abused by a family member who said that they loved you and said that they cared about you. Maybe you had a family member tell you that you would never amount to anything and that you would never be successful in life. All these types of experiences can create a deep amount of pain and suffering that can go very deep within our hearts. Another type of suffering that I know many of us have experienced is the suffering that comes from the spirit of familiarity. Many of us are grown up in families where we've had family members that didn't encourage us in our strengths, but they tried their best to exploit our weaknesses. And the reason why they did that was because they only saw what we were and what our past was and didn't look to see what we could be in the future. And they had a very small idea of the very big idea that God had for our own personal lives. And they didn't see what we are truly destined to become in Christ. And so one of the things that I've learned is that it is important that we start really understanding that we're not always going to be one-on-one. We're always not going to be understanding one another. There's always going to be times where there's going to be conflict. And it's going to create a great amount of suffering and pain. But the reality of what I've learned in life is that with suffering becomes perseverance. And with perseverance is character. And with character, there is hope. And hope is truly the foundation that we need to be successful in every area of our life, but also to help our family to be successful in areas that they could be as well. Second lesson that I learned is that with family, there must be loyalty. It says to honor your mother and your father. It says to love your sister and your brother. It says to be loyal to your wife. And though these scriptures are important and though they are right and truthful, many of us have been tempted to encourage loyalty in family members in any circumstance, when in actuality, it is some of those circumstances that if we keep on encouraging a family member to go down that path, it will lead to a path of self-destructive. For instance, there are some family members who I'm sure like to borrow money all the time. But yet, we know they have a track record of spending money on addictions. And if we encourage them by giving them more and more money, all we're going to be doing is feeding those addictions, which therefore is going to cause them to go down a path of self-destruction. There are also family members, I'm sure many of us have, that are completely arrogant and full of themselves and self-centered. And we all can be like that sometimes. But if we encourage those family members and don't give the constructive criticism, they will end up putting themselves in a very destructive situation because of their own lack of wisdom that we could have gave them. All these types of experiences are important for us to understand loyalty, but first we must learn to be loyal to God first and see what God says about those circumstances through the Bible so that we can effectively be loyal to someone else, so that we can help them be everything they were created to be in Christ. Last but not least I've learned about family is this, that family helps to bring about balance. It says in the Word that we are all individuals but yet one body. How can you say to someone else that you don't need them? The truth is we can't be successful on an island by ourselves. And the truth is, a woman who is fiercely independent, who refuses to take advice from anyone and doesn't need anyone and just wants to be successful on herself, by herself, will make a horrible wife. And the same token, a man who refuses to listen to his spouse and take constructive criticism will become a horrible husband because he's not listening to the very woman that God meant to complement him and walk into destiny with. The truth is, I wouldn't be where I am without my mother. She helped me go through some very difficult times. She encouraged me when I got out of college. She helped me to pursue my dreams. And she sharpened me in areas of weaknesses that I had. She said, Lon, what about this? What if this doesn't work out? What about how are you going to make money right now while you're building this? All these types of these questions helped to build me up as the man that I needed to be so that I can be successful on an initial practical level, which helps me to be successful on a long-term level. She also created an environment where my imagination can flourish. She helped me write a book in the house when I didn't have a lot of money coming in because she believed in the message that God gave me of Sketch by Design. The reality is this: families are not easy to live with sometimes. And it truly does take a lot for a family to be successful. Number one, it takes the ability to be able to suffer at times so that we can develop the hope and the character that we need to help our own family be successful, whatever they're designed to do. Secondly, we must learn to be loyal to our family by first being loyal to God and seeing what He says so that we can be loyal effectively to our own family and help them be successful. Last but not least, we must learn that we need each other and that we need to have a balance in our life by having other family members sharpen us in areas that we need to be sharpened. So I want to encourage everyone who's watching, anybody in the audience right now, to be able to realize the importance of family. And they may not like you all the time. You may not like them. There may be things you want to say to them that you know you shouldn't say, but you want to say anyway. There's all those random awkward moments where you're trying to communicate and they just don't get one thing you're trying to say. But ultimately, in the end, I know that with family and being there with family and having your family close to you, they can help you to be the person that you were designed to be. We will be right back.